So give us your perspective on Intel's strategy here, what they're trying to do. They once were really bestride the earth. They were the leaders. Then they lost it. They're trying to get it back.
Yes. Well, David, thank you for having me as always. And it's interesting. If you think back in time, you mentioned the point they were the leaders. When they had an integrated business, I mean, design and fabrication or manufacturing, R&D, manufacturing, design, they controlled their IP. And the thing was called the x86 architecture, which is really the PC client server era. And in collaboration with Microsoft, they drove the innovation cycles. Those guys led and drove. Well, it's no longer the case now. Intel is behind in the technology. They're no longer driving the innovation cycles, and the bringing back the fabricators or the production side of the company is very, very capital intensive, and it requires large amounts as well as patient capital, which, as you know, on Wall Street Week, most of our investors today in the public markets aren't really keen on the strategy of patient capital.
So what are the prospects of Pat Gelsinger, who came back to Intel, had a grand plan to rebuild the original great Intel? What are the prospects of really being able to do the design as well as the manufacture the way it once did?
I mean, it's plausible. The problem associated is the industry has shifted. And you have focused companies, i.e. like ARM, who are focused on design, who are very, very advanced and do a lot of the work for companies as is Qualcomm and those kinds of folks. And at the same time, you have massive capacity in the fabrication or the production side of the house with TSMC and Samsung and the others. So if you think about it, you need basically very deep technical R&D skills on the design side, and you quite honestly need great skills as far as production, moving down what they call the nanometer curve to this stuff which really subatomic at this point in time. And that requires massive capital. One tool alone is over $100 million from ASML. So you can imagine the expense associated with doing both of these at the same time. So it's hard technically. It's also difficult operationally. And I think in many ways that the skill set that was required at one point in time to run an integrated business has now changed because people now have seen opportunities both either in design or in manufacturing or production.
Now, the U.S. government has thought it could perhaps prime the pump here a bit. With the CHIPS and Science Act, among other things, Intel stands to benefit something to the tune of $8.5 billion in various forms of financing. As you say, that's not enough to get you there, but how much of a help is that to sort of get you headed in the right direction?
Well, you remember you have the U.S. and you also have the EU, both are providing funds, investment funds to Intel. So it is a large amount of money. But to move a fab or build a fab, we're talking about somewhere between $10 to $15 billion today. So, I mean, it's good to have a partnership in the capital model. Needless to say, it would true up the balance sheet of any company, even one as large as Intel. But fundamentally, it'll add capacity, but I don't know if it's going to add enough capacity to differentiate Intel versus the large fabricators that exist already today. So therefore, I mean, they serve, I think, a strategic purpose for the U.S. around national security, which is securing the supply chain of these key important technologies around chips. And today it's the graphics chips, not only the traditional chips of the past. That's very, very important. But the question is, how much of that capacity can one company really provide to the U.S. government?
So Sam, return, if you would, here at the end to Intel. You've run a very, very big tech company in IBM very successfully. What advice would you have for Pat Gelsinger? I mean, back when I was running something much less complex and I had a real problem, I said, look, what do I know is working? How can I do more of that rather than trying to fix everything at once? What should Pat Gelsinger focus on at this point?
Well, I think, quite honestly, I really do think he needs to, and I believe he's doing that, is revisit the strategy that they've laid out. And then based upon that strategy, can they go it on their own? It appears, and I don't have the details, David, to be fair to Pat, but it does appear that that's a significant challenge at this point in time to go it on their own. So therefore, either you change your strategy, which is go back to the industry model, which is separate design from the fabrication or production, and that will appeal to investors because it's less capital intensive and less risk, or you form a partnership with companies that can help you do that. The challenge with that for a company like an Intel or an IBM, having been through it when Lou Gerstner came in and I replaced Lou, is the culture. It's the management system. People were number one. They were the leaders. IBM was the leader of its day. Intel was the leader of its day. Go back to Microsoft. Before they made the transitions, they were all the leaders. So you have a management system and a culture that's very, very insular. And that's what you have to break down. So it's not only just the technology and the capital structures and your balance sheet, it's also you have to deal with the culture of the management system. And that's hard. And now Pat knows that because he grew up in Intel with Andy Grove and those guys. So he certainly understands it. But even understanding it, as I grew up at IBM, even understanding it, it is a very difficult challenge to get all those people to make this change and to buy into the change and help you execute it and get it done successfully.